Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out in the local, regional, and international scene. Today is the 21st of August 2015, Friday, the end of the work week for some. For those who have to work on the weekend, it may not necessarily be the end of the work week, but I'm sure that there are lots of you who are looking forward to Friday so that you can then relax. I want to remind you that Radio Cayman is your radio station. For the Record is your talk show where you are allowed to participate. You can do that by calling us on our toll-free number, which is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. And of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. Today it's Friday, and it is the day reserved for the formal opposition to be in the studios. We have the pleasure of having with us this morning the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, former Premier of the Cayman Islands and leader of the opposition. And we also have with him Mr. Jonathan Piercy. We're going to be discussing principally, I won't say exclusively because there may be those of you who may want to call and talk about something else, but principally we're going to be discussing the Nation Building Fund, the Auditor General's report on it. But what we want to also do is to give you, our listening audience, a clear perspective on what the Nation Building Fund is all about. And in doing so, we're going to ask the leader of the opposition to give us the genesis of the Nation Building Fund, what it was designed for, so that you get a complete picture, and based on that picture and what you have been able to glean otherwise, then it helps you to get a better understanding of what the Nation Building Fund was intended to be. And Mr. Bush will also be addressing any criticisms or any critique of the Nation Building Fund and the way that it was handled. So without any further ado, I want to say welcome to Mr. Bush. Also, we have in the studio with us Mr. Jonathan Piercy, former candidate in the District of Georgetown in the 2013 general elections. He's also with Mr. Bush. So, gentlemen, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Osi.
Good morning, Osi.
Thanks for having us. I'm glad I could get back here another day. I'm going to see if I can take up more of this opportunity on Fridays instead of handing it to the people who go elsewhere. But I will try to get back here as often as I can. I don't like to be in radio every week. I don't think it's necessary. But these days, a lot of matters before the public, a lot of matters affecting the public, a lot of matters for us to address. But before I get into what I came here for, which is really the nation building aspect, I heard you, and I think it was when another MLA talking the other day, and he was talking about what he was doing in his district, and I know this, that they push for those matters. That's for certain. What I take issue with is the fact that you say, and he said, and you say too, I got to tell you that, O.C. Man, I still think that you support one man, one vote, you know.
Did I support it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what
no question.
That's why I don't think when the
No
two
question.
you all, there's no balance, you see?
No question.
That's when somebody else is on.
Having worked in the electoral process for 30-odd years, pretty clear understanding of it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you understand it, but what you don't see is what's down below. Because you
because I'm not in the political...
no, you don't understand that one.
Yes.
No. And you wouldn't put on your cap and put your hat in the ring either. At least not yet.
No.
But I want to say that's besides the point. The point that both of you were making, that's the reason, one of the reasons why you support one man, one vote, because of this
personalized touch.
But I want to tell you about if it's personalized touch that brings that you should have one. Well, that's a new twist now. That's a new twist.
Yeah, I gave it.
Yeah, you gave it that. That's a new twist to it. But I want you to look at this. And you see, this had to be done with people. I can't do those things myself, but it's all personalized. Of course, people supported me, but it's things that I push for. Now, you read some of it, please. Please, you read it.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. McKeever Bush's district accomplishments. Mr. Bush has provided his community with 16 years of honest, dedicated,
that was a little while ago.
Faithful service. So it's not 16 anymore. It's how many now? How many years now?
30, nearly over 30.
Over 30. So
Yes.
this is probably
old, but it's some of those
16 years ago, maybe. A fire station, Vicksville boat ramp, new North Sound jetty, new primary school, upgraded town hall field, upgraded town hall, public beach, health clinic with ambulance service, a new school hall, improvements to the post office, improvements to public cemeteries, new roads and street lights, acquired a new bus for the John A. Cumber Primary School by a joint effort between government and the PTA, purchase of 10 acres of property for the primary school, purchase of property and held groundbreaking ceremonies in the district, in the new Dalmini Bank Civic Center, Hurricane Shelter, Ed Bush Sports Complex, Jimmy Powell Cricket Oval, Softball Diamond, Community Park. So that's good, yeah. But
what?
But let's put it in perspective now. If Mr. Benson was running with you then, or Mr. Dalmain were also members of the district, they could make the same claim too.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they could make the same claim.
I started by saying that this is done with other people. Right. Other people, but I can say I push for it.
Sure.
And don't talk about the personalized, because it had to take personalized service to get this. So you don't need, in other words, to counter what you're saying, you don't need this what he's saying or what you claim to be personalized service to get anything. You work with people and you get it done.
Yeah,
and that's
but personalized is one way, or is only one way. I'm not saying that that's the exclusive way.
No,
I'm not saying that's
no.
the only way, but that is one way.
No, that's not one way. That's the way. That's another twist that you all want to put to this mad scheme that you all want to put in this country. And I don't support it. I never will. I don't see any use for it. Anyway, I just want to say you don't have to. The personalized service comes with people or by yourself. I got some of this with people. And I got some by myself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have. The fact is, what I'm trying to say to you is that you don't have to have a single member district.
And I agree.
One man to get it.
I agree wholeheartely with that.
Okay, but
if you're going to argue single member
you
constituencies, then that's a point to put forward.
You
know,
didn't say that yesterday. And you
don't argue the opposition's point for them. You know.
I know. But once you all is on, you see, you don't have no balance in it. Anyway, that's how radio show goes. But I wanted to point that out to you that I have worked for my constituency over much more than 30 years, because I've been involved at least 40 years from 1979. Before that, politically, but got a lot. Things started in 1978, 79.
And no one can dispute that. And I think you've done some even outside of your electoral district as well.
Oh yes,
you know?
Oh yes. But the one thing that has always been wrong with me is that I've never chosen to publicize things. I started back to school supplies in 1979. Me one. I wasn't elected. Me one. I still do so today. Never once have I gone on radio to blare to the world that I give children back to school presents. I don't need to do that. because the person that needs to know is the person that I'm helping. I don't need to do that. I've done a senior citizen party, started in my yard with 23, I think, or 27 people. I think only 2 of them is still living. And the last one I had, we had, but I started by myself in 1979, senior citizen Christmas party, 600 and something people now attending.
Wow.
I've never once said to the world, I'm doing this. I begged for it. I got to because it cost a lot of money. But this year we had over 600 people. So I'm not a politician. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you need to publicize everything that you are doing. And even if it's big things, I don't need to look at this morning's paper. You have the hospitality school. How many people remember how much I did to get that school started? How many? I mean, the government, not going to say that. But I put the money, I put up the fees on the liquor and on the cigarettes to get money for that. Over $1 million. And then we started it, and just in December, when I was arrested, they had just agreed that we were going to start in the new year. Everything had been completed. So when Moses came in, all he had to do was put on his red cap and his red shirt and say, "It's me, I'm here."
And again, it is all part of nation building. It is all a part of nation building.
It's all a part of nation building.
Yep.
So I wanted to point out those few things, and there are several other things that I thought I would get on, but I would probably get to them in the course of our discussions here.
Okay.
I do.
We have about 3 minutes before we're going to go to a commercial break, so
that's
we'll
one
give
thing
you
about you.
an opportunity to
Radio Cayman
your introduction.
is doing too much good business, you see.
Jonathan understands what this is all about.
I do too. Well, everything I do, you make a big mistake. I do understand that Radio Cayman has to make money, or else it would have closed it a long time ago. In fact, they tried to do that. Anyway, I'm very glad to be here. Nation building, I can't deal with it in the opening for 3 minutes. Right. But I want to say, I will start with an overview. But I want to say that I think I can do this in 3 minutes, that from 2000, all my political career I was assisted to churches. But I put it in my manifesto specifically in 2000. Support and assist our local churches as they are the moral and spiritual guiding light of the district and the entire nation. That's 2000. 2005 shows that we did the same thing. The manifesto for 2005 shows, I have that here, I wouldn't go into it, but it shows that we did the same thing. Then 2009, the period on the question, I said, the UDP has the utmost respect for the religious foundation and future of these Cayman Islands. Our spiritual devotion has guided this country for generations, and God willing, it will do so into the foreseeable future. The UDP pledges to work hand in hand with spiritual and religious organizations to alleviate the ills that plague us and pursue a better Cayman Islands. That partnership includes financial support that enables such institutions to expand upon the government's efforts to eradicate poverty, battle substance abuse, strengthen the family, and more. Our pledge of religious inclusion was made even more important as the vote on a new constitution draws near. And so that was 2000, the period on the question. 2013, we said again that we were going to, in 2000 manifesto, act always as the party for the family, for the community, for the church, and for everyone who wants a better life for themselves and those who are important to them. So I have a mandate, or I had a mandate to work with the churches. That cannot be said. And if the present government can claim that they have a mandate to put in one man, one vote because they just put it in their manifesto when they didn't even get a majority. I had a majority, a clear majority in 2009, and I carried forward my manifesto. I carried out my pledge to support the churches. I will get into more details as we after the break.
Okay, folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. In the studio with me this morning, we have the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, former Premier of the Cayman Islands and now Leader of the Opposition. Also with us, we have Mr. Jonathan Pierce. I also want to remind you that For the Record is sponsored by Digicel Top Up, where you can send minutes to your loved ones in Jamaica from a Digicel retail location or top-up kiosk. And they will receive double credits plus 7 free days of data when you send $20 or more. Please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.
Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in studio with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeeva Bush and Mr. Jonathan Percy. We're discussing Nation Building Fund. Started out with the genesis of the Nation Building Fund. You've heard Mr. Bush talk about his manifestos, where in his manifesto, he's pledged to work with the churches, to help the churches in the Cayman Islands, and part and parcel of that nation building fund and monies that were dispersed to those churches in keeping with his manifesto. Mr. Bush?
Thank you, OC. So, as I said, I campaign on the basis that I would work with the churches, and of course we campaign, and that is also there, what we would do to assist people. But as I grew up in this country, OC, as you did, in these islands, and I must say that I come from the working man side of the street. My mother raised me. As far as I'm concerned, I came from a one-parent family to that extent, and so I know what it is to want something, to need something, and you can't get it. But as I grew up, and as I got older, and I lost opportunities because of an educational system where people just didn't care, and I was one of those that was turned out early from secondary modern school. I didn't get a chance to go to turned out early for space, not because I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a lawyer. But I didn't get that opportunity. And I vowed, in all my life, as I read and I done things to help myself, including going to UCCI at the time, the community college, when it first opened, I think in '71, and I went while I was at CIBC, I went for a stint at ICCI. So I tried to upgrade myself as I grew older, but what I recognized over the years, and particularly so as I got elected, as I campaigned to get elected, one of the reasons why I did that was because there were so many Caymanians that were falling through the cracks. People couldn't get scholarships. People couldn't get housing. There was not really a middle class back then in those early days. Really, the middle class came in the early '70s when Jim Borden and them got in. They started to create a middle class, a proper middle class, and so I found out, and I recognized, and I was part of it, that I suffered that problem. We fell through the cracks. There were far too many, and over the years it continued. And I said, it can't happen if I'm in cabinet. I'm going to do things that helps people. I'm elected to help people, not to put stumbling blocks in their way by more and more red tape. To get right down to brass tacks, I created the idea of nation building, but that wasn't just in the vote, that was a lot of other things. I created national heroes. I carried that law. I carried other laws that created medals, created our national symbols. All those things are nation building that recognizes what our national song is now. All that is in law because I fought for it, carried it. I also believe to be a country, we couldn't have the governor who comes from 4,000 miles away, wherever he comes from, to sit in the Legislative Assembly as our speaker, be the chairman of Executive Council, and be the governor. And I fought that. Me and people like Roy Borden fought it. And, I carried one. I think Roy Borden carried it one time. We lost. And then I carried it the second time. And so about 3 times we tried, and we got the vote to get our own independent speaker. Those things are nation building, whether people want to say so or not. So it's not just an aspect of giving people money. I've done much more than that. But I do believe that when it comes to things like the church programs and other situations, in particular people, whether it be young people, whether it be in sports, whether it be in the performing arts, whether it be in the hotel industry or tourism industry, or in general commerce, if you may. they must have an opportunity. And so we said, look, here's what we're going to do. If a child comes in with 1.5, 1.5 grade point average, then we want to make sure he goes to the community college if he's interested, or ICCI, or to upgrade himself to get a higher GPA. And then he can decide whether he wants to go somewhere else, and then we will assist him. Or if he got 2.5, you still can't qualify for the government scholarship. And so we said that person we could send to a Miami-Dade or a Broward community college or some part of nowhere or something, one of the other ones. Upgrade themselves, and then they could go to an FIU or they could go to something in Canada, right?
Because under the current system that they had, that person didn't have too many options if they were unable to get a scholarship through the normal scholarship program if they didn't fulfill all of the criteria.
Oh, see, that's not just government. When I got elected in 1984, there was one scholarship being given publicly by private sector, one. That was the Bankers Association. Now, Cayman Wireless used to do some training back then, and I think several people, several boys got some treatments under them. But there was one, and when I became labor minister, I simply told them, either you give scholarships or we're going to find a way for you to contribute. And of course, the different banks then start to give separately, and other people start to give separately. And today we got more. When I was labor, I got more out of talking heavily to them, passionately to them. Some people say it was threatening. I say passionately, but I got a job done. People got more scholarships, but government just had a situation where, if I should say so, only special people got, and that was maintained from the 40s or early days right up until I got elected. In fact, it was made worse recent times, and there's more pressure put on them, and this government feels that you have to do that to make people upgrade themselves. Well, yeah, sometimes you just can't give someone something just to give it to them, but you got to open the door wide enough that they can get in. And if you take two pieces of wood out of the front of the door, then they can stumble or they can fall through. No, I meant that we needed to ensure that people had a chance, and so I gave and ensured that people gave. I set up a committee, and just let me say, getting right to the Auditor General, we set up a committee when we got elected in 2009 within the Ministry of Financial Services, because that's what I had at the time, and tourism. And so we set up a group with several, Mr. Dilbert, Pat Hewlett, and several other civil servants. But at that time, it was fresh. Alden McLaughlin had already beat it to pieces because he was carrying out his narrative, his actions, his opposition in the Legislative Assembly. And so he wanted to say there was a slush fund, and of course he supports the Auditor General because they want to continue making it look like that we had done something wrong. But he should have realized the Constitution that he passed gave us, and the Public Management and Finance Law, gives us the opportunity as ministers to direct civil servants in our policy to see that it is carried out the way that we want to carry it out. And the Constitution says that. And OC, I should read that since I haven't read it on your show. But in two sections, Section 44, it says, the Cabinet shall have responsibility for the formulation of policy, including directing the implementation of such policy. Directing it. Now, in Section 108, it says that subject to this Constitution, all public officers must act in accordance with the best interests of the Cayman Islands and not in their own private interests or their own private thoughts, right? And B, implement government policy to the best of their ability and in accordance with the directions given to them by the Cabinet or other responsible person or authority. So don't come telling the people of this country that the ministers don't have that ability. It's clear, Mr. Auditor General, it's clear. And for you to say otherwise, you're not telling the truth. And you're trying to put a picture in place that makes people believe that civil servants are ain't no good, that they're incompetent, that they don't pay attention, and that they just allow ministers to do. No, they carry it out according to what ministers give them. I don't give civil servants fault for that. That is what the Constitution says must happen. And of course, the other part of it is to make civil servants look bad, but then to make politicians look as bad as possible. And so he has been on that, and not only just him. And they come here with an agenda, pushing their governance ideas, and our people not stopping to realize, oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. Sounds good. But just look at the rest of those countries, what a mess that they are in with red tape. And they're trying to cut back. And some governments are cutting back in the United States and in Canada and in the UK and in the smaller territories. They are trying to cut back on red tape. And what's happening in Cayman? They are piling it on us. The Auditor General comes with his own, and you know what that is for? Oh, you got to go with international standards. You know why they're saying that, OC? Because they're going to look jobs, and those international standards will reign supreme in institutions like OECD. So they got to look good. They got to look good so they can get that job after they have left Cayman and said all manner of evil about Caymanians and our processes that has made us a fairly decent country. The way that we did business before and the way that we carried it out has made the prosperity in this country. Regardless of what the newcomers want to say, they are what one old man used to say in West Bay, they just come here. And they can't say that I'm an anti-foreigner, they can't say that. But some of them comes with their own ideas and expect to promulgate those ideas and push it down on civil servants and make it hard for civil servants and make it tough and dirty and make us look dirty as politicians.
Okay, folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, we have the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, and Mr. Jonathan Piercy. We're going to the news at this point in time. We ask you to please stay tuned. For those of you who are on hold on the phone lines, we will be taking your calls as soon as we come back from the news. So please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I am your host, Orrit Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, and Mr. Jonathan Piercy, former candidate for the District of Georgetown in the 2013 general elections. We're discussing the Auditor General's report on the Nation Building Fund. And before I throw back over to Mr. Bush, I just want to read part of the executive summary of the report by the Auditor General. And basically what he says here is from 2009 to June 2013, the Legislative Assembly, and I want you to listen to this, people. The Legislative Assembly approved budgets for a transfer payment program known as the National Building Program. So first of all, the National Building Program was a program that was approved by the Legislative Assembly. There was a budget. It was budgeted for, in there. A total of $13.2 million was paid out in those years under the terms of the approved budgets. Because of significant public interest in how these funds were used, the Office of the Auditor General conducted a performance audit to determine the extent to which these payments provided value to the people of the Cayman Islands. The audit reviewed whether the Nation Building Program was operated in accordance with expectations for a government transfer payment program, and whether the funds paid to recipients were used for the intended purposes. Again, before we hand over to Mr. Bush, I just want to say that I have a personal experience in this as well, because as the Chief Commissioner for Scouts in the Cayman Islands, the Cayman Islands Scout Association, in addition to obtaining a peppercorn lease on a property from government on Middle Road, we were also the beneficiaries of $200,000 from Mr. Bush's administration. We also received money from the this administration in relation to assisting with our building. We were approached by the Auditor General's office, provided him with all of the documentation, even took them over to a site visit of the property that was being done. Because not only did we receive funds from government, but we received funds from many private entities as well. And we gave an undertaking that our books would always be open for them to see exactly how the monies were being spent. So they saw all of that. I have not received an official response from the Auditor General's office to say, yes, your program is clean as a whistle or whatever. And I haven't really looked in the report to see if say, for instance, the Scouts Association's program was mentioned in terms of how it was operated. So I just wanted to bring some balance, to the whole thing, at the end of the day, because there are entities out there like the Scouts Association who can give an account for every dollar that was given to them.
And everybody that got money gave account for it, OC. That's what's wrong. And when he says, you just talking about the Scouts and what we did, when he says that the money, and he says one thing in one place, then you read it further, he'll say there was no value created for the money. And you talking about giving the Scouts. Is that not something good? Anyway.
Can we just jump to the phone lines? I mean, we got a few callers, and I think we had them holding before the news. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Apologies for having you hold so long.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Bush.
Good morning, George. How are you?
Good morning.
Yeah, Mr. Connor, how are you? And Mr. Jonathan, how are you all doing?
Fine, sir.
We're doing good, thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank to hear you, Mr. Bush. I know that is why they don't want you in power, because you're the only one that can stand up to them. But I got two things I would like to say, and then you all can answer me after. The Auditor General isn't Cayman wasting money with him, because my personal belief, which I'm uneducated now, but my belief is that we got people here right in the Cayman Islands that could do his job, and they could do a better job than him. I can name several of them. You got one sitting down there with you, Mr. Jonathan, the Dr. Linford Pearson. We got a lot of them, Mr. Saunders, all of them. We got a lot in Cayman that could do that job instead of giving it out to a foreign. I don't know if he's English or what. That is one. And I am a bit upset with what I saw on the news yesterday afternoon with this human rights commissioner who can come and say all of these sorts of things about Mr. Eden and the whole legislative assembly. Seemed like, where was he all of these years that Cayman was living a Christian values? Where was he in 60s and 70s when the mosquitoes was so making us Caymanians live terrible lives and we survived it? How can these people just come into the country and just dictate to us and tell us what to do? This is not right, And I hope
Constitution, my friend,
the Cayman Islands government and the people can rally around this thing and do not compromise with England for nothing. England is destroying us. We're not going to be no worse off if we stand up and say, England, do what you want to do, but we're not going to accept this. I don't think we're going to be any better off.
and worse.
And a worse off, and a worse off. So I don't know. This is upsetting. This man can just come on TV demanding that we change our laws to suit him.
You see, what they won't do, George, they're not going to fight you face on. If you told them that, what they will do is what they have done to people like myself. They will find ways and means to accuse you, then to belittle you, and to throw doubt on you. And you saw that a few days ago when they got up and talking about fabricated documents, and then the commissioner of police come on talk about investigations. You see, these are the kind of things that they do to throw doubt on. And the history is replete with it here. Particularly, I know about the Caribbean, but if you read the history of the Commonwealth, you will see that that's what normally took place. They went at the people at different ways. some time ago they shot them, as they did in India, and now they use a different way to get at you. Anyway, people have to stand up. That's what is important. People have to stand up.
Okay, that caller has left us, Mr. Bush. So you can.
I want to continue on this matter. I think George, he's always concerned about something that is ongoing, but I want people to understand that we're not objecting to scrutiny, OC. I believe there must be proper procedures in place for anything that we do, but it don't need to be. The process don't need to be to the extent that you cannot help the person you're trying to assist. For what good then are you as a representative? If you're going to put blocks in your way, you can't help the person. And if the AG, the Auditor General, would use language that is not berating and then leaves the impression that politicians got something out of it or doing something so radical or wrong, and he called it that corruption could come in, or civil servants are incompetent, if he wouldn't do those kind of things and use that kind of outlandish language that he has been using to belittle us as much as possible, then we wouldn't look at him in the way we do. There must be proper process. There must be accountability. But you don't have to put the things in place that you can't help nobody. And that's what I objected to. I still do. And the fact is that this government is suffering from it, and other governments are going to suffer if they leave the things in place where these people have the say. He reports to the governor. You don't hear about him auditing her expenditure or the governor's expenditure. You don't hear that. You don't see anything about Tempura. No, you can't get that report, right? That is done. That is hid away, and that was them doing it. So it is okay. Listen, I'm sorry, but that's not my kind of governance, and that's not my kind of justice, and that's not my kind of fair play. And I'm saying that those things do not exist in this country today and hasn't for a while. Now, we talk about the Auditor General, and he talks about, and to show you, he's talking about $13 million. What he's not telling the people is that when I was there, I was trying to get a $185 million loan, but I was trying to get it at a better interest rate than what we could get around here. And why shouldn't I? I was the Minister of Finance. I wanted to get something and save money for this country. No. He said then in that report there was no value and that I could get that loan if I walked out of my front door, right? Yes, I could get it, but what would I got it at? I would have got it well over what we was trying to get it. We could have got it from New York for just about 3%, right? We ended up taking it because him and the governor carried on so much, and the people in the news media carried on so much and made it look so bad that I said, well, why am I being accused of this when I'm trying to save money for country? Let's go and get it then, and we got it. But what did we get it at locally? Nearly 6%. You know how much we're paying on that $185 million? We're paying, because of the Auditor General, which nobody's saying anything about, paying over $50 million in 10 years that we could have saved. We could have saved that amount of money. You know what I would have done for this country? Over $50 million because we're paying nearly 6% on that loan. These are the kind of things that they're talking about. What you don't see that in the Compass editorial, I betcha. You don't see that on the Compass front page, I betcha. And you don't hear CNS talking about that. No, because they have a different agenda to make us look bad as possible. They come here with that idea that Cayman is bad and Caymanians is bad, and they think hard of Caymanians if we got to give Caymanians anything. I can sink a ship, and it's nothing to it. I can sink a ship and pay for all kind of money from government for doing so. Grants over the years, we've given how much? You know, we hear them saying that is wrong. I give a church, and that is wrong. That's where our people is every week. The majority, I wouldn't say the majority, but because it's not a majority, but there's a lot of people be there every week, and we got a lot of programs going that is good in those churches. But most of them that complain about us as anti-God, they're atheists. Mm-hmm. Don't you believe that they think there is a God, but Mickey Bush know there is a God?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Bush, if I may, I just want to go back again to the summary. And the Auditor General here acknowledges certain things, and we want, I'd like to focus on them for a minute. He talks about the Public Management and Finance Law 2013 revision, and he says that it describes a transfer payment as a benefit or similar payment for which no output or consideration is provided. So you don't, it's a payment, and you didn't really have to provide any output or consideration. He then goes on to say that due to public interest and the amount spent by the government, the Office of the Auditor General selected the National Nation Building Program for Audit. So
that's what he's saying?
Yeah,
but that's not so.
But
that's not so.
And we'll come to that. I mean, he just touches on that. He doesn't give any any substance to it as to his justification for other than that. Then he says here, the Nation Building Program was approved by the Legislative Assembly 2009-2010 budget as a transfer payment program, TP 52. And there was a description that was provided in that one: after school, young leaders, sports, and other assistance, where individual empowerment and community support initiatives, social care, linkages between churches, schools, and community-based organizations, reporting, sporting, cultural, and other volunteer bodies. The grant support for church-based after-school program and assistance with facilities development. So this is a description that you all gave in the budget. So it's
what
basically
the cabinet agreed on.
Yeah, and what you said would be done, right?
And what was passed in the assembly.
And in the succeeding years, the program was described as follows: promotion of nation building and church-based support, support for schools, sporting, cultural, and other volunteer organizations, grant support for a church-based after-school program. Again, basically saying the same thing. Nation Building Program was under the responsibility of the Office of the Premier or the Ministry of Finance, Tourism and Development during the 2009-2013. There were three categories of payments: grants called Young Nation Buildings Program, grants given to churches, and other grants for government. So again, he doesn't deny the fact that this was all laid out by the government in terms of, what was done. Seems as if his beef is more, not so much the program, but how it was administered.
From that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he speaks with a lot of tongue in cheek, speaks with a lot of double tongue, a lot of fork tongue, because he said one thing on one hand, he said another thing on the other. When he comes to assess the whole thing, he says there's no value for money. Mm-hmm. Look at what the things he said. And some of the other things he said, which I'm going to get to before 9:30, is that I'm going to get to some of those things and deal with it, because this is where he contradicts himself, and that's what Mr. Dilbert said. Here's what Mr. Dilbert said. Mr. Dilbert wrote Mr. Franz Manson on August the 10th, because Franz sent the thing to me. I was in Miami with my wife to the doctor, and I couldn't open it. I came home on that Friday. I opened it, and immediately I said, Franz, I cannot address this. The Auditor General didn't send it to me. Franz told me, the Deputy Governor told me, that he thought that I should look at it because he didn't agree with the Auditor General. This is what Mr. Mandan said about some of the findings of the Auditor General. That's what Mr. Mandelson said to me. And so I said I would need to contact some of the people who were on the committee to draw memory, but I had some documents myself, and I knew that some of this was wrong, what he was saying, and it's his usual hatchet job that he wanted to do in Cayman. And so I got a hold of Mr. Dilbert, who was this chief of staff, and an honorable gentleman and an excellent civil servant. And I said to him, here's what he's saying. And Mr. Dilbert wrote Mr. Franz Manderson and said, and I want to read that: I have had sight of the reference report. I understand it is to be circulated to MLAs for review and will then be released. It would be bad judgment to allow this to happen. The report is so seriously in breach of acceptable auditing standards that it should never see the light of day. For instance, the persons responsible for the operations being audited were not consulted in the audit process. Volumes of readily accessible evidence was not only not taken into account, but said not to exist. Full responsibility for all supposed breaches is claimed to fall on two persons only. This not only
grotesquely distorts the realities of the program's management over time, but gives rise to charges of unlawful and other wrongful behavior which may provide grounds for legal action. Now, that's what the Auditor General is saying. Mr. Dilbert is repeating it. But of course, we could take it against him too. This report, and I continue, this report embodies such a dereliction of proper auditing standards that it would inevitably bring the office of the Auditor General, and with it any government which acts in its defense, into serious disrepute. It would be nothing less than abuse of the privileges afforded the Auditor General to promulgate a report as illegitimately constructed as the July 2015 report on the nation building program. In light of the foregoing and many more serious flaws, I therefore look forward to early reassurance that the said report is to be withdrawn forthwith. Well, and that's Mr. Leonard Dilbert, right, to the Deputy Governor. Of course, nobody not withdrawing it because his job is to make us look bad no matter what he says. He knows that the report is good. He knows that the aims and objectives is good. He knows that the aims and objectives were stated in the Assembly. He knows that there was a committee. He knows that there were civil servants on the committee. He knows that I don't write checks now, and he knows that everything was accounted for. He knew that because they were told so by the only one person who's still a civil servant. The only one person who was, let's say, the deputy, but that's senior. That's not senior. The senior had left, and he had only spoken to that person and didn't get a report from her. So he only spoke to one person and didn't go back to that person to say, "Do you agree with what I write?" He didn't do that, but that's what he's supposed to do.
I was going to ask about that.
He didn't do that. I can tell you some other things.
And we'll come to that. We'll come back to that in a minute.
Because the man has come here to do a dirty job given to him by Duncan Taylor to cut up and make people look as bad as possible.
Folks, I want to remind you, you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, and Mr. Jonathan Percy. Please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record, where I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, and Mr. Jonathan Percy. We're discussing the Auditor General's report on the Nation Building Fund. We're going straight back to it now. Again, in the Auditor General's documentation, he readily admits, and I'm quoting here, the government has the authority to establish programs and spend public funds once the legislature passes an appropriations law. While it would be expected that the government would provide the Legislative Assembly with information to support the amounts presented in the appropriation, we found no evidence of support for how those funds were to be spent. That the legislature didn't require you to provide that. And they were the ones that were, at the end of the day, approving the appropriation. So if the legislature if they wanted it, they would have asked for it. They simply did not. So why does he have a beef with that, or go to the legislature and say, why wasn't this done? But that's not your fault.
He can't question the legislature. He can't question the legislature.
Exactly.
Either.
Right. You're elected by the people to do these things. If it wasn't something that couldn't be done, then of course the speaker of the legislature would have intervened in that matter, or the chairperson of the finance committee. So he readily admits that, and we'll set that aside for a minute. But the other one that we were talking about, though, in terms of an audit, and Mr. Percy, you can interject here if you want. In the course of a normal audit, it is customary, I should say, I'm not sure that it is legally required, but it is customary if you're being audited and they have produced even if their preliminary findings that they have come up with, they will show you those findings, give you an opportunity to respond, to comment on those before that. How many entities were allowed to comment on what their findings were before this final report was made?
OC, just quickly, you're absolutely right, but I'll take it a step further. As a matter of fact, before the audit proceeds, okay, it is customary, and as a matter of fact, I think it's best practice, international best practice, for auditors to go into the department, the organization, whatever it is that they're auditing, and to sit down and speak with persons that are familiar and involved with the day-to-day operations of whatever it is that they're auditing, okay? They do that. That is part of their working documents. Okay, they take notes, meticulous notes. What is the process? What is the policy and procedure? To take copies of documents that roll this out, that lay this out, and they speak with individuals. They take a sample of the work that they're going to audit. It's usually between 3 to 5%, and they look at that work. Okay, if they need to take a larger sample based on some concerns that they may have, they will. But this is all part and parcel of some of the initial work that they do, and then based on the interview, based on the documents, based on the samples that they've taken, they will write, as you said rightfully, a preliminary report. That report then is then given in draft form, okay, back to the individual and say, this is our findings. What say you? They usually give you 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever. You can respond in writing, but it's usually you have a conversation with them first, and then you respond in writing. Okay, they don't have to take it all, but what it does do is it affords you an opportunity to see what they've done thus far, and to clear up any sort of ambiguities that
and
might
for
be
you
there.
to record
And to
what you agree or disagree
on, right?
Yes.
And to state that. But what has happened? Okay. What has happened with this report, unfortunately, is that persons that were involved with the day-to-day operations were not spoken to. Documents, okay, prospectus, okay, policy documents, which Mr. Bush has here, 2 3-ring binders, right? All of this stuff is available. This is public information. None of this was referred to. None of this was looked at. None of this. There was no commentary on this stuff. What he went around saying, and it's in the compass. He went around, for example, and said that the Hope Foundation received $130,000 without any documentation. Yet no one spoke to anyone over at the Hope Foundation. No one investigated. No, he didn't even come forward to those individuals that were sitting in the committee or see where these documents were and say, can you provide me with the information to supports this payment of $130,000? He just wantonly writes that there was no documentation, and it was sort of frivolous, just given if you actually speak to Mr. Brent Heights, who is the man that is running the day-to-day operations there, he will say to you that a summary, okay, a very meticulous summary laying out expenditure, okay, and all the rest of it, where the monies would go for what programs and to do what and what not, the objectives, the goals, and all of that was laid out. An application was provided, okay, it was submitted, and then it was approved, okay, and it wasn't a one-time check, $130,000 without any requirements. No, invoices were presented, checks were written. That's how it was done, right? This is how it was done.
They have a board of from the private
Directors,
sector.
yes.
Correct. Everything was above board. Similarly with the nation building, the scholarship program. He lent the impression that this money wasn't value for money. When OC, the fact is that, and I can tell you this from personal experience, the nation building, the scholarship component, the application form is over 10 pages long, OC.
10 pages.
I am telling you, personal experience, okay? And there's this sort of feeling out there in the general public that anyone can apply and there's no standard, there's no floor. That's not correct, okay? First of all, you had to have a certain minimum GPA requirement, and if you fell below the threshold, there was a period of time that you had to bring that GPA up, okay? In addition to that, okay, the application for the scholarship, you had to be going to an accredited university. Okay, it had to be a degree or a program that you were going to do that the government felt was part of the nation building scheme. So, for example, if we wanted psychologists, if we wanted doctors, if we wanted lawyers, if we wanted those sort of things, that was what we were geared towards. We weren't geared towards astrophysicists. Okay, we weren't doing rocket science because it wasn't applicable to the Cayman Islands. Right. We weren't building the world; we were building our nation. Right. Okay, those documents were provided. They were scrutinized by a committee, not by the premier at the time, by the committee, and a decision was made whether or not to grant the funds. In addition to that, OC, there were many programs, including many technical and vocational programs that the Ministry of Education and the Educational Council didn't provide scholarships for. Okay, there are many individuals who, for example, went off and did auto mechanics, okay, up in Rhode Island and other places, that they got the funding directly from Nation Building because the Ministry of Education didn't provide for those scholarships. Those are the things that are lacking in this report. We have Mr. Bush was recently a few kids recently posted to Mr. Bush's Facebook page, and one of the posts comes from a young lady by the name of Cindy Glasgow, and she says, "Thank you, Mr. Bush, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Cayman's first Premier, for finding me worthy of granting me your scholarship. My country, family, and God are my forefronts." A next one from the family of a gentleman, Javier, says, "Good morning. Here's some pictures of Javier at his graduation at FIU yesterday. Thank you for the support. He did us all proud. We think that the YNBP, which is a Young Nation Building Program, was a great scholarship, much better than government education, one which does not support the candidate's needs. We know firsthand because they switched Javier over to that one in his last year, and because he wanted to do summer school to finish early, they wouldn't fund it, so we had to fund it ourselves. So there was flexibility within this program. It wasn't that he wanted the extra cash so that he could stay over there and do something, hang out at the mall or go to the club. He wanted to finish up early and go to summer school.
Okay, we have one caller online.
Go to summer school, and the present government wouldn't do anything to help the man.
Yep. Huh? We have a caller online. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm very well. I'd like to say that I'm happy to know that we are getting some clarity to this report that the Auditor General has seek to put in the public domain. And as I've always, I'm not like most of us who sit down and take everything the people that come from across the pond say as gospel. I always read, analyze for myself, and listening to Mr. Bush and Jonathan this morning can only summarize that clearly this report was only made for one purpose, and that was to be damned in the face of the Cayman public and indeed that of Mr. Bush, because I find very ironic that the Auditor General, who is the end all and be all of the auditing process of us of the Cayman Islands and what the government does, I find it very ironic that he did not even seek to speak to individuals and speak to the process before making such a damning report. It is very, very concerning. It's very, very concerning, and it should be alarming to those of us who follow these things and not just taking it for gospel because it is the quote-unquote Auditor General who came from across the pond. If it was one of our own, believe me, it would never have got the rise that it did. And I hope and pray that someday soon people will understand that this process that was done with the the Nation Building Fund has aided and assisted many of our young Caymanians who were not in the category to get the regular scholarships, because I know many, and I must again applaud and congratulate Mr. Bush for his efforts in what he did, and as we say, he had cojones. Gentlemen, I'll leave you at that, and you all have a good day.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for that.
Sir. Folks, I want to remind you, you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition and former Premier of the Cayman Islands. Also with us, Mr. Jonathan Percy. We have to go to a commercial break now. We'll be back very shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest with me, Honourable W. McKeever Bush, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, now Leader of the Opposition, and Mr. Jonathan Percy. Mr. Bush, I know you wanted to thank the caller.
I want to thank the last caller for their call, and it seems that they listen and look and they have some experience of what they're talking about, which is good to hear from those kind of people because they understand what's going on. What I'm concerned with, as I said, is not he writes certain things, right? But look at what's happening in the papers. Here's the compass. The findings of the report generally affirmed and supported by Cayman Civil Service. Now, which civil service? And supported by Cayman Civil Service, led by Deputy Governor Franz Manson. Which civil servant supported it? France said some words, but he didn't. I don't think he told them what he told me, that Auditor General were wrong in many things, and they told him so.
Now, if the deputy governor is saying that there can be improvement, I am with him 100%. 100%. There can always be improvement. Everything you put forward, mostly in life, can be improved, and I don't have no objection to improvements. But if he's saying that the Auditor General is right in the lies that the Auditor General talk, then he's speaking with double tongue.
Okay, one of our listeners have sent a message and said Auditor General's role is to examine value for money. He's going way above and beyond that and being political. He should have closely examined some of the recipients of the scholarship program to see how they benefited, the opportunities they receive. It goes back to my point when we were talking this morning, and we were talking about single member constituencies and a personalized touch. If I want to argue my point, I'm not going to bring in the good point. So if he was on an agenda, a predetermined agenda to begin with, then what he's going to do is point out all of the faults in the program, but not the attributes of the program.
Problem with that is the problem with that is that as the Auditor General,
you're not supposed
he's
to do
to
that.
be neutral
Exactly.
and impartial,
neutral,
and he's supposed to allow his investigation to take him wherever
Exactly.
They are not neutral because the fact is he listens to the leader, the government now, and he was listening then to the leader of the opposition, whose narrative in the assembly was to lambast me and lambast the program. So he's picked that up and found an accomplice in it, and he wants to use that. That he feel he's puffed up now with strength because the opposition was with it. Now, when you take what you read just now, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to say this point. Here's what he's talking about: the findings of the Pro General affirmed and supported by Cayman Civil Service. I want ask Brent Fuller, which civil service, led by Deputy Governor Franz Manson, which civil service were reported to the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, which for months had been looking at certain matters connected with the funds. Now you want to tell me that all the things that they claim and they haven't found anything, that the paper come now, and I'm going to comment on that and talks this rubbish about the police wasting our money like tempura, looking at what? What are they looking for? Now, here what he says, why they're looking at it. Now, you know what you just read. The operation of the program was done outside the government's own governance framework. Now, how he could say that with what you just read? Huh?
Okay.
The Auditor General said there was no formal application process for any of the disbursements from the fund, whether for assistance to church programs, scholarships, or other expenditures, or he says until 2012, but that's not right. It always existed. Now we had to improve on it, but from the very beginning it was outlined in the assembly, and we had a process.
Okay.
For a committee. But here's the problem with the compass, and let me just say this. Make this point. The problem is that
we don't want to promote them too much on here, because we
yeah, but I can talk about them. The problem is that the written media, particularly when the compass, whether we like it or not, you're going to got two written medias in this country. Particularly when the compass writes on a matter, even when you can show that it is not correct, they don't give it the same headline treatment. Even when you can show that what the Auditor General is saying here, this is what he says, for funds, what I just read, there was no formal application, etc. Auditors found. That's what this is meant. For saying that. And my thing is, so the bold headlines on the front page creates the impression that people like the AG, the Commissioner of Police, and the Premier wants to make us look bad.
Okay.
But when you go to do the response and they find out the facts, they are hidden away in the back page or the middle page.
We have two callers online.
Okay.
Maybe they're going to
problem.
sing some of the attributes of the nation building program. Let's hear what they have to say.
That's the problem.
Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. Hi.
Good morning, Miss Lorna. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, but I don't have to identify myself.
No, I told him we have voice recognition in the studio here,
Yeah, well, I have to tell you that, I must publicly say this morning that it was due to the Nation Building Fund that the Cayman Islands Folk Singers was established and got going. And, people see and hear the folk singers now, and we've become so popular actually that we can't keep up with the demand or the request for performances because the members, of course, are all working people who volunteer their time. But the point is, people like the Auditor General, he couldn't give two hoots about what is developed here for Caymanians and by Caymanians and with Caymanians' own money. That's the thing that really irritates me, because if the money is put to use for the development of our nation, it is our own people's money. The money didn't come from England. It didn't come from anywhere. It's what we produce here. Yeah. And I'm actually very sickened to know that this man who goes way beyond his remit, way beyond, you know, he's to the point where he wants to dictate policy. And it's really disheartening, because the people who benefited most from Nation Building Fund, as far as I know, were Caymanian people who may not otherwise have been able to get the benefits of a good education, or certainly in the case of the development and promotion of our own music. People didn't know Cayman had their own folk songs. People didn't know the story until through, you know, and I'm not saying that every single thing that has been done was done through nation building, but I can tell you in the particular instance of the Cayman Islands folk singers, it was nation building funds. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to secure any funds now since that, and that's over 5 years ago. So the funds are running out. I wonder if the Auditor General might be prepared to make a small donation to help us keep that great work ongoing. I thank you, and I hope you'll all have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lorna. Let's see if we can take the other caller before we go to the 9 o'clock break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning, Jose.
Good morning. How are you?
Not bad. This is my first time calling the show here.
Okay. Well, hope you will continue after today.
Yeah, I just called to say that I've been listening to this program for a long time about England and all the fools going on here. I do not understand why the people of this country do not tell England to take themselves and get back to England and make them stay there. We have built this country so fast by ourselves. Why we cannot continue to keep on going ourselves? I don't understand why. Why we go sit down and let's make England come and destroy us people. Now that you got a tax gay issue. You know, when I heard a man like Mr. Anthony Eden on a talk the other day in the assembly, I felt so proud of myself to hear him speak. And now I get this. I heard again this morning that about this other guy talking about this, what is famous, that they're supposed to cancel that and all kind of stuff. What's wrong with the people of this country? What is that guy say? Hey, go back to England. We come from do what the Chinese did them. Send them back to what Africa did. Get them with Africa. You know, see these people destroy this. They destroy us. So it's the next thing happen here, you know, gonna be they gonna have them as slaves. Thank you very much, Osi, for listening.
Thank you very much, caller. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I am your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition and former Premier of the Cayman Islands. Also with us, we have Mr. Jonathan Piercy, who is a former candidate for elections in the District of Georgetown in the 2013 elections. We're going to headline news. We'll be back shortly. Please stay tuned. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record, where we have in the studio with us this morning the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, and Mr. Jonathan Piercy. I just want to read another section of the report here. This one is headed the Legislative Assembly and the public were not informed about the program's objectives or its results. The governance framework for the spending of public funds requires legislative approval in the form of statutes or appropriations law. We would expect, now he's saying we would expect that to approve the funding of this program, members of the Legislative Assembly would need information on and understanding of how the funds would be spent and used to nation build. The Legislative Assembly didn't require that. Now he's going into the area where he's telling the Legislative Assembly what they should require, what they shouldn't require. And the other question, the rhetorical question, is that in other budgetary appropriations, are they expected? And in this case, it had already been pointed out, what the Nation Building Fund had said,
there for.
That it was designed for.
Which
yes.
he also speaks in the introduction of this report.
Exactly.
But my question, and I think you said it already, which is simply this: who gives him the right? Where does he get the authority to question how the legislature does things? Where's that? Mm-hmm. Is that his remit? I thought it was value for money. I thought the Office of the Auditor General was to do audits to see whether or not there was any sort of malfeasance or any other sort of things like that, and also.
But
to
that's
look at
what they
value for
want
money.
to find, gentlemen. The Auditor General, it is as plain as the nose on your face that the Auditor General came here with Duncan Taylor to try and find corruption. When they could not find the kind of corruption they thought that people were telling them existed and that they wanted to find, and then they could not do us what they had done the poor people in the Turks and Caicos, then they zeroed in on me and on credit cards, where everybody was using their credit cards to buy this, that, and everything, Christmas gifts, watches, clothes. When they said they went to England, didn't know they had to go to the palace. All sorts of things they bought, but they want to say mine was for gaming. No, I done the same thing. I bought things with it and used it for other purposes. Never for gaming. They're a bunch of pack of dirty liars, and they come here to destroy this country. And if we sit down and allow them to do it, then it's our fault. Mm-hmm. It's our fault.
He goes on to say here that the Legislative Assembly, in a sense, then provided the government with a blank check to do whatever they wanted. Now, he continues to use this term. We would expect that at the end of each year. So his expectations. He doesn't say that it is legally required. It is just meeting his expectations. In many instances, they wanted their expectations.
But that's what I'm saying. They come here with their form of governance. That's what I'm saying.
Point well
I am saying that we have followed the law, that we campaign on it, as in my manifesto. We win the government in a majority. We go and we set up our programs. The opposition takes it apart as they want to and accuse us, as Alden did. But we pass it and we bring it here. That's the same thing they're doing now, They're passing what they want to pass. They're the government. Although they're a coalition government, they're the government. And so we pass it. The civil service, before you even get to that point, the civil service writes all of it down. We put it in a paper. We take it to cabinet. Cabinet agrees. And we take it to the assembly and we pass it. And then the civil service disburses it. I don't sign checks. I merely, what I did with OC with that Nation Building, is I said I'm elected to serve the people of this country, and I am elected not to allow anybody to fall through the cracks if I can help it. There are too many cases that we can't do anything about, but those things that we could do something about, I was adamant that we can do it. And I gave the orders, and I have no excuse for it. I say to them, no child, no matter who they are, if they're PPM, C4C, who don't need it, whoever, nobody, child, is going to go without assistance if they need it. And so we give, you look at Cameron Stafford. That young man has all kinds of talent. He's our top squash player. And he had an opportunity to go and train in different places. I gave him the funds to help him along, because that's going to be value to us. That is value to us. Not only is he advertising Cayman, not only is a good young man that has kept out the problems, but one that is contributing to our sports. And I believe that sports should have all the support that it can get from government, because it is one of the main things that keeps young people away from evil. And they stopped that, they cut that. But he says all those things was wrong. Here is where I am objecting to him. And I'm telling you that this man is not great as he say. I asked him to tell us about Scottish Rail and his role in the debacle in Scotland with the overruns on Scottish Rail. Ask him if I don't know. I heard that he was one of the oversight people there. So ask him,
what role he played there and why he not reporting on that, why he not talking about that. If he played that role, I don't know. But here is the paper Compass on page 8 of Monday, August 17th. Another $240,000 was paid over 2 years to Cayman Traditional Arts to provide teaching programs for schools on heritage activities such as Cayman cooking, hat making, and catboat building. There was no documentation regarding this program from the schools, auditors found, nor any statements about why the program was needed. Now, this is not the Auditor General. This is the Auditor General report, but this is the way the Compass put it, and then they said auditors found. Nor any statements about why the program was needed. I mean, they are absolutely a pack of idiots. If that's probably the best language, if I do call them liars, that I can use. Here are reports, and since we're on television, here are further reports, OC. These are my copies, okay, that I've kept for 2011, 2012, 2013. These are the reports of Heritage Arts. The same one for the $120,000 dollars per year. Okay.
Nothing mentioned about them.
Nothing, because he did not go and talk to the man. Here is the first report for 20 year, 11 and 12 that the man says did not exist. Here is the report. Here is it. Here is what it says. It gives the introduction to the program. Here's the report, and here is the topics: marine, silver touch, culinary, food, traditional games, the number of students taught in different primary schools, and it goes on to talk about how many. It's now, at that point in 2011, we started out with 317 students per week. That was 1,268 per month. It's now well over 450 students per week that this program is teaching. West Bay, Georgetown Primary, Prospect Primary, Savannah Primary, Red Bay Primary, and I think it goes into the other school there, the one for physically challenged.
The Lighthouse.
No, the other one.
Hope.
No, governments. Oh. What that program is? School. Is that Lighthouse School?
Sunrise.
Lighthouse. Sorry, Lighthouse. Yes. School. So yes. Now here's comments from this is the report now for 2012, 2011 when the program started, the first year. Throughout the year, Heritage Arts have conducted an evaluation of the program's performance on all schools mentioned above. 97% of the students acknowledge that Heritage Arts has done an excellent performance and they want the program to continue for the next school year and suggested to put the program up year 7 and 8 classes. 100% of the teachers and principals also gave an excellent rating for Heritage Arts classes. Quote, Mr. Christian and his team of teachers continue to make a great impact in promoting Caymanian culture. Over the years, the students are enthusiastic and thoroughly enjoy these sessions, very informative and hands-on for the students. Ms. Marie Martin, Principal, Georgetown Primary School.
Okay, one of our listeners, again, sent a message and said more people that benefited from this program need to come forward, and I've said that.
Yeah, but that don't happen in this country.
So what he also says is that you should publicize more of the names of the young people who benefited.
I don't believe in that.
Let the country judge whether it was value for money.
I don't believe in that. You see, Alden published that one of my staff children got. And they got, I think it was 60,000. But when you saw the recommendation from her sporting organization and the value of that child and what she could do in her possibilities for basketball, then, I mean, we gave what was suggested. We didn't give all. But I don't believe in using people. Those parents allowed Jonathan to read off the Facebook, allowed to put them on Facebook, and some of them did themselves. Mm-hmm. But I have never believed, as I said a while ago, I do not believe in publicizing things because Cayman is small, and some people take it the wrong way. They get jealous. They carry on. This one shouldn't get. Next one shouldn't get. You can't say who should get and who don't get. You can't look at a person and just say, oh, they got a good house. You see some people losing their house now. Them good houses. So they were poor. Ms. Martin, that was Ms. Martin I just read. Now we have Ms. Gloria Bell, Principal Prospect Primary. The program has been a resounding success. It has allowed the students of year 6 to be able to have a greater appreciation for their Caymanian culture and heritage and life in the yesteryears. As the principal of the program of the school, I want to recommend that this program be continued in the next academic year. Now, those are some of the schools and the principals of the schools reporting on the program, where the man said that there was no reports. Here is the allocation of funds. Here's the allocation, the report of how the funds are going to be spent and how they and what they were spent on. And and here's the mission statement. And then the children gave their own testimonials. This is the report for 2011, and his accounts are there, not just here, but he got the physical accounts. Okay. Now, if the Auditor General had gone, now what I'm baffled at is that July, when the new government came in, or May thereabouts, they immediately took this to task, because both C4C and PPM had carried on bitterly against this, making all kinds of accusations about corruption too. So the first thing they did was to jump into this in 2013, and they sent an auditor to this program. I found out, and the auditor said, "But you got all your information, you have all your documents." And the man said, "Take this and take it back." He said, "No, we don't need all of this. You are okay. You have done what you have to do." And so what happened? I am surprised at that. And then for him to say in his report, and the Compass to say in what I've just read, there's nothing they said. And you see all of this. That was 2011 and 12. And here is the report for 2012-13. And this is the introduction. This is the school teachers. All of these shows who the school teachers are. It shows all of this, all the teachers. It shows the participating schools and schedules, what they're doing, showing the students. Listen, the whole reports are here. What they do, I mean, everything,
okay,
expenditure and everything. And yet that man said there was no report. I just read it in the Compass. Now you can say, Mickey, you're talking too fast. You're talking too passionately. Well, I have to talk passionately when it comes to these things, and to see how people are criticizing and making people and talking about calling the police. The police need to check into some of their own people, what they're doing. That's what the police needs to be doing in this country.
What we really want to do here, though, is that we want to give a clear picture to the public. They've gotten one picture from the report, and what we want to give you the opportunity here is to present the other picture as well. They always say there are two sides. Some people say three sides to the story: your side, my side, and the truth. And we want to get those other sides out as well. Two callers online. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, number one. How are you?
Morning. Good morning, sir.
After Mark number one in Blackfoot,
I hear you.
I listen to you too. I got a comment and then a question. The first thing is the question. The Auditor General and that last government, I want to find out if it told them what the money they were paid. Why he left his job?
He's completing his dirty work, and he don't want to report on this present government now, and you might not see any reports on them. So he's done his dirty work on us, and now he's going. He got a good plump for it, a good job in the OECD.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I'm sure glad to hear he gone.
I do too.
Because
good riddance.
I tell you what, I couldn't even understand half of what he was saying when he on TV. I'll come back the second thing I'm going to ask you is this. For God's sake, try to see if you can get that government TV channel up here.
All right.
I've been trying not the government, but you try and get it up here.
All right. We're going to do that.
I'll go hold you to that.
All right.
All right, you have a good day. Don't let nobody frighten you.
Oh, well, you can't do that. They've done everything else. Prosecuted me, taken me to court, done everything. Lost business, lost money, but they don't frighten me.
Right, have a good day, all of you.
Thank you very much, number one. You do the same as well.
All right.
Next caller, good morning.
somebody
Welcome
else.
to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Connor.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Mr. Bush.
Good
Glad
morning.
to hear your voice so strong. And to you, Jonathan.
Good morning.
This is Terry. I just wanted to say that as far as the Nation Building Fund go, I'm very disappointed to note that there were so many students that were recipients of that, from that fund to go overseas and get an education, or even locally, that was stripped of it. And that saddens me because an FOI I received states we gave scholarships to individuals whose parents make $1 million bonuses at the end of the year from their firms.
Is that right?
So, yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
maybe you can give me a copy of that. I don't send in FOIs, but I would like to dearly like a copy of that.
I'm an FOI junkie.
Yes.
Anyways, I wanted to say that was the most imperative section of the Nation Building Fund. And stripping our students of an opportunity to be educated is very wrong. And I do not support anything that would have gone against that. I mean, to do that. Our children must be educated. Every week I hear the same old song out there. Caymanians are uneducated. Caymanians are unskilled. That's why we have to bring people in to do the jobs. Well, here is an opportunity that was given to our children, and we took it away from them. This Indian giving is not satisfactory to me at all in my country. I do not appreciate it. And, the fact that you took that on and stood up to them and put this forward, this Nation Building Fund, it was, the education aspect of it was imperative. And I don't appreciate that as an individual. And I thank you for at least taking the opportunity to do that and giving so many children a chance to get a degree. I was happy to see Ms. Glasgow on your page the other day with her adorned in her robe and cap.
An honors student.
Exactly.
Honor student. You can't. I mean, these are things that brings. I tell you what, right? They give me goosebumps because you know how much I wanted to be a teacher or a lawyer.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to get that kind of education. I didn't have that opportunity, and it brings goosebumps when I go to graduations. Man, listen, tears come to my eyes as it do to a funeral, and it's not for the same reason, but it's because of the joy of seeing young people making something of themselves or starting out on the road for something for themselves that they can build on.
I agree with you. And you know what else? I would have thought that the Auditor General would have looked into. That would have been something that of interest to the people of this country, instead of having our mother country stab us in the back and grin in our faces at the same time, was to give us value for money for what we paid Carnahan out of the Tempura fiasco. How about investigating that for us? Because we were never given the opportunity to know how much we had to pay him. We don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere boiled up into millions of dollars in our budget.
We don't know, but I can tell you what I feel about that. I feel like Mr. Carnahan was given a rotten end of the stick. You hear what I tell you? But one of these days it will come out. I believe he was. But one of these days it will come out. I don't know because I don't know anything about it. But from what the little bit that I do know of what I see and read, is much more to it than what is being said.
Anyway,
and you grew up here, and you know that you never. It's not all what they say. You know that.
I agree. Not everything is gospel that comes out. Mm-hmm. So, like Mr. Connor said, there's always three sides to the story.
Yes. Thank you very much for your call.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Thank you very much. We still have one more caller online, Mr. Bush. We're gonna one more caller. Let's grab that caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, just fine, Mr. Connor. Thank you so much for facilitating this discussion.
Thank you for calling.
I feel it's something that we really need to think about, and we know we've heard this comment about three sides to every story, and we know that God is the only one that sees everything. So we know that God is patient with the process, and we must think of the enormous leisure of God because He's never in a hurry. Sometimes He calls us to just be still and to sift things through and see His power at work, and to understand that late blooming virtues can be the very best. That as long as we have life, there's hope. Mm-hmm. So we must look at the bright side and look at the good things.
Certainly.
Look at what it is that we can celebrate here in Cayman, and what is it that has been done. And I'm going to speak directly to Mr. Bush now because I know his heart is for the people, to hear those voices that are oppressed. But sometimes we can get carried away with our good intentions, and it is very important to keep proper records. So that's part of the process, so that when we're handling public funds or someone else's money, that it's very easy to be able to show clearly the track and the paper trail, and it's a timely process, and it's sometimes a real challenge to be able to prove that you paid somebody what you said you paid them. It's not just a matter of showing your canceled check, but you actually have to show that that person received that check and received the funds, and that the funds were spent where they needed to be spent, and you have to have that. It's I've worked with various statutory authorities that were so far behind in their accounts that I was like, if I'm going to be a member of this board, we need to get these accounts taken care of, even if we have to suspend operation for a time to get these accounts up to date, especially if they were more than 3 years behind. So those are the challenges. When we're dealing with public money, it's our money. It's the people of the Cayman Islands. It's our money. So it's to our best interest to have money accounted for, to have that openness and transparency, and to be able to say, yes, this is what I did with the money, and yes, this person really was in need, and they needed a helping hand up. We weren't just giving them a fish, but we were teaching them to fish. So that, there's times when only God knows our good efforts and the intentions of our heart. And so I continue to pray for Mr. Bush. He knows that I love him and I respect him, and I know that he has the best interest of our country at heart, as so do I. But there's times when, we have to put up with the nitpicking. I was called a nitpicker.
No, but that's not nitpicking, Julian. And I want to stop you, because if you don't see, and I know that you're an intelligent person, and you know how much I respect you too. But if you don't see what these people are up to, and you don't want to take my word for it, well, that's your business.
I see what they're up to, and I'm going to come right out and I'm going to say it. They're nudging us towards independence, for us to be able to get our house in order, that we are able to take care of our own affairs.
But we are taking care of our own affairs. They haven't given us anything. And
can I finish what I have to say, and then you can comment afterwards, Ms. Bush? Is that okay? Because I seek to uphold good governance, openness, fairness, transparency, responsibility, and accountability. We are called to be stewards of public funds, to keep our accounting up to high standards, and we have to deal with conflict of interest and potential corruption. And I believe that higher standards are needed. And I will continue to salute the efforts of our previous Auditor Generals to carry out their duties independently and courageously, calling a spade and showing a better way of governing. We are now in the 21st century with instant results, and we need more light in some of the darkness that's around us. So I salute their efforts, because they have reinforced my own personal understanding of accountability, transparency, and good governance. And we have to also ask ourselves, if that was a Caymanian in that post, saying those same things, publishing those same findings, making those same reports, are we going to castigate that person in the same way?
But caller, they can't be biased in their approach. And when you look closely at the documentation, at the report, you can certainly see the bias, that they were intended to go in one direction. They didn't necessarily go where the facts led them.
And
there's always, like we just said, there's always different ways.
Unfortunately for me and you,
I remember a conversation with Mr. Bush one time that he said, you can have 6 lawyers in the room, each one of them will come with a different opinion.
Yeah.
So,
well, unfortunately, Julian, that means you see differently about what they see and what they do.
Well,
listen to me, just to say to you, and don't leave, please. Just to say to you, you hear what you're talking about, a little piece of paper, and I am not an accountant.
Okay, I am the minister with policy, and I am given the constitutional duties that I carry out. I haven't gone beyond that. I certainly will push vigorously for people anything that I do, because I'm not going to stop and count every fire ants, every lime lizard, every crab. No, I want people to be fed. I want people to have a job. I want people to be able to live comfortably. And sometimes you can't do that because of the red tape. Now, you're the lawyer, so you love red tape. And you can go and cut and paste.
I don't love red tape.
Yeah, you do, Julian. You know that.
I love to cut through it. No, I like to be able to say, here's what I did. And sometimes, yes, I know it's not possible.
Anyway, darling, let me tell you something. The Auditor General, when this is why I know that he's a hypocrite. This is why I know, and you can call it castigation. If you see what he's saying about me, you read it. You read it. So I don't know what you call that. But listen to me. Just listen. He never used to bring any scrap or paper down, present $30,000, $39, $49, $50, $100 and something to us as the Public Accounts Committee to be paid. Car rentals in Cayman, hiring this one from Canada, hiring this one from the next place. You don't know who they are. We don't see them as Public Accounts Committee. Yet I got to go there and vote for him without him bringing anything but says one sheet of paper saying this is what I spent it on. Well, I got in big hot water with them over that, and that's why you read some time ago that the chairman said that I had a conflict. I don't have no conflict. The only conflict I have is if I did have a conflict, I don't know what that would have been. But I would say this, that is why that man came out and said that, because I said to the Auditor General, and I did not agree until you come and prove to me what you spent that money on. I am not agreeing. But because what is good for the civil servant and everybody else in Cayman and the politicians, then and those elected, I suppose maybe some people will change their view if certain people get elected. Anyway, I'm elected now.
We lead by example.
I
lead by example.
That's right, and I want to make you know that he didn't do that. You can't come up here and say you agree with him, Julian, when it's on records on file at $185 million loan that I could have got for 3%, I had to take it for 6%, close to 6%, and we are paying $52 million more. You can't say that is good for this country, and then I must sit down and take it, but you're not elected. And I don't know if you still vote for me. I believe you used to do. If you don't, and you don't get replaced, cut up again, I ask you, still continue to vote for me. But
thank you very much, caller, for that. We have to go now.
Right. Thank you very much for your call. You love me, and I love you.
Yes,
always did.
And we have to keep the best interest of our country at heart.
That's all I'm doing. That's all I've ever done. You know that.
Our young people will be able to prosper, and we do need to. There's that spirit of entitlement that has crept in, even from not just those of us born and bred here, but for others that have come in here. So we have to look carefully at that as well, so that when we're helping someone, that we are not carrying their load, that they come in and are expected to step up to the plate and not just keep looking for a handout.
Well, I'm sorry, but we don't. I didn't do that. I don't know who you could be referring to, but I didn't do that. What I do is to give people that need. I don't care if they come from the man, the moon. He look like a Martian.
Yeah, well, we're creating a system. I know I'm part of the system too. We're creating a system where people know how to, if they need something, they'll, and
it is not what it seems, though, Julian. People are hurting in this country.
Yeah, I know.
People are hurting, and you need to pray about that for your government, because they're not doing the right things, sweetheart.
My own thought is that if every household was a sanctuary for its children, and our children were seen as our greatest treasures to be nurtured, and I know you've done that with your household. You are a shining example with that in your household. If every family was like that, and we would have less young men in northward prisons, we would have less difficulties in our lives. But for whatever reason, there's some people that think their children were a mistake, and they tell them that, or else they think, well, okay, you just go and you beg so-and-so for it, and they're going to help you, rather than teaching their children responsibility, teaching them how to do chores around the house, teaching them that they are a blessing and they were created for the purpose of being in relationship with a creator God and with everybody around them, and to lift them up to higher standards, to be able to say, well, if you receive something, you thank somebody for it, and you be content with what you have. And if you need more, if there is a need, then yes, we will speak to that need. If it's something you just want, like a new iPhone or an Xbox or some other thing, well, then you work for it.
Good
You don't
thoughts.
just get
Good,
it.
good thoughts.
Thank you very much, caller, for that.
Good thoughts.
Sorry, but we have to cut you there because we're going beyond time now. Just in the interest of fairness, and I just want to make one correction, and I'll explain it. In the recommendation section of the Appendix 2 of the Auditor General's report, he does make recommendations, and there is a column there for management response, and the management response is there, and the responsibility of the government entity that is responsible for implementing those recommendations. So we see, for instance, the Deputy Governor's Office, the Ministry of Finance, Economics and Development, and the Cabinet Office. Again, the Deputy Governor's Office, Ministry of Finance and Education. Now, what I don't know here is whether or not these persons who are empowered now to implement the recommendations were the same people who were involved
No, it would be
in the
different
program, and
different
whether
people.
or not, like for instance, Mr. Dilbert,
Yeah.
who was involved in the program, did the Auditor General's officers speak to him
No.
when
But he said
they
that.
were doing their investigations?
No, they did not.
Did
They-
they?
no, he did. That's what he wrote to Mr. Mandelson, and I read that email a while ago. That he did. The Auditor General did not go to him. He didn't come to me. He didn't go to see traditional arts, and yet he's saying all these things. And so why? I mean, if he is as Julian says, why is he doing these things? Why? Tell me. He come here with an agenda, Julian.
If you wanted a complete report, why not come to you? Why not go to the senior civil
No,
servant in the ministry
that's
who
what he
was
said.
responsible?
He said, Mr. Dilbert said that he did not speak to those things. He did not speak to those people. He did not. So how do you get a full story? I mean he has made some recommendations that I completely agree with. Because everything, as I said, can be improved on. What I don't agree with is the way he has chopped up our work to make it, cut it up, hatchet job, to make it look like somebody did all this wrong. And now this gives cause to make those recommendations. But he could make those recommendations without telling lies, because that's what this are. This is what this is. It is all about. This is what he has done. He has said the things that don't exist, and they exist. So tell me. Now, for one thing, he said the impression, or he says it in there, is that is of no value. Well, here were the scholarships granted for various levels of study and various careers, right? Accounting, special needs training, professional flight training, business and finance, culinary studies, degree in criminal justice, sports, performing arts. Look, these are all things that builds a nation. All things that build a nation, and that's what that was doing.
Okay, gentlemen, we're getting to about that time now, so I want to give both of you an opportunity, for final comments and any more clarity that we can bring to this in terms of our listening audience. Starting with you, Mr. Piercy.
Thank you very much, O.C. I want to once again thank you for allowing us this opportunity to come in and speak specifically to this matter. In my wrap up, I just want to say a few things, and in particular to the last caller. I know many of the comments were geared towards Mr. Bush, but I think that it's absolutely necessary for me to comment on a few things. The first thing is that while we understand that that there are many people out there who are not necessarily aiming for the stars and perhaps aren't doing everything that they should be doing to sort of help themselves along, we also do recognize and know that there is a growing number of Caymanians who are trying their best to do everything that they can do, and for whatever reason, circumstances, for whatever reason, are not allowing them to get there. The nation building scholarship component, for example, was one of those programs. It wasn't a hand out, it was a help up. As I stated earlier, the requirement, the application form was over 11 pages. There were certainly rigorous scholarship requirements, but we can't say that the individuals who want to do, for example, a technical and vocational program aren't worthy of funding because the Ministry of Education feels that that is not something that they should pursue. When we start to talk about building a nation, we're not just talking about lawyers and doctors. We're talking about persons who are in the technical and vocational fields as well. You know, doctors and lawyers can't build homes. They can't do plumbing. They can't work in their cars. They certainly can't take out their trash. Those are things that are also necessary components. So another thing is, if we look at, for example, the Superior Auto Program, that was a program that was funded and supported heavily by the Nation Building Fund. Again, that was an opportunity where you had individuals who fell through the cracks for whatever reason, that saw the need and wanted to take advantage of pursuing a career in auto mechanics, and the Nation Building program provided them with that opportunity. We speak about the caller spoke about keeping proper record. Absolutely, it is imperative and important that we keep proper record. However, if you keep proper record and an auditor comes along and refuses to look at the record, then what say you? You know, what is the purpose of holding every scrap of paper if the auditor comes along and refuses to have a look at it? And I'll also say this, as the premier of the country, Mr. Bush wasn't micromanaging the process. He had a committee. The committee was set up. It looked and reviewed at all the documentation and ancillary documents that went along with various applications, including the one that Mr. Lorna Dilbert spoke about, the folk singers. We had Mr. Brent Hydes over at the Hope Foundation, and we had other programs going on. I can tell you as well that Miss Mary Lawrence, who was one of the individuals heading up a particular program with the Bordentown Senior Citizens Group, they kept record. They made an account. They submitted what they wanted. That was for the heritage group of people there, whatever. So there is documentation. OC, you spoke about the scouts, and you guys provide sending forward all the necessary documentation to get the stipend that you received. So I don't think that there's anybody, not one single person, even Sandra Catron, whose name was once again smeared because she got some money from the fund. She had proper documentation. The fact is that people aren't looking at documentation, and I think that is what Mr. Bush is trying to highlight, that this is not a fair report with fair recommendations. This is a report that has been skewed. It has been biased. It has not been centered from the get-go. The only thing that has been fair about the report is the introduction that sets out very clearly what the Nation Building Fund was about. He has overstepped his bounds tremendously to speak about legislature procedure, process, what he feels should have been done. He's even gone and used words with things to intimate that perhaps corruption took place, that perhaps the police should be looking into certain aspects of this, to suggest as though there was some sort of double take or money under the table, or persons that recipients didn't get what they were supposed to get and the monies weren't used for. That is all not the case. There is not one incident, including the tour that you gave them, OC, that even mentions that they could identify the Scouts or perhaps Superior Auto or any other program, the Hope Foundation, to say, you know what, we found that we went to the Scouts, for example, we spoke with Mr. Connor, and we find that this has been done above board. There is not one thing to say.
No balance.
There is nothing, no balance whatsoever. And let me just say it, because I know we got to wrap up, but let me say something, right? We are here this morning talking about the audit report on the Nation Building Fund, the fund that was responsible for building the nation. Which nation? Our nation, the Cayman Islands. And yet, we scrutinize that. We want to somehow not give our own local representative the benefit of the doubt. We're not saying that it was that everything was, every I was dotted and every T was crossed and it couldn't be improved on. But what we're saying is that this was not some sort of bastardized program that was put in place to somehow breed corruption. This was something that was giving opportunities to Caymanians, opportunities to social programs, opportunities for Caymanians to move up in the society, in their country. And someone has come along now, okay, and has tried to tear this down. Let me ask you something. Do you think that we are getting value for money when we're spending over $70,000 per prisoner okay? Yet we're spending $20,000 on a scholarship per student, and we find that hard to even find those monies. Do you think that it is value for money that the road works for this budgetary period is for Georgetown is almost $5 million? $5 million. Yet we're having people losing their homes, people can't find work, and there's absolutely nothing being said about that. Do you think that is scholarship that when we look at the airport, for example, okay, the previous board that was there said that they could get certain things done for $20-something million. The new board comes along, $50-odd million, and jetways aren't even included. I hear no comment whatsoever on that. Do you think that there's value for money with the RC, with the Royal Cayman Islands Police Force that are getting millions and millions of dollars and can't solve cases? We need to start to ask ourselves some important questions, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Too many things, Jonathan, has been said by the Auditor General that is wrong. And I don't think any right-thinking person, if they read it, can say, no matter how much they want to be squeaky, look like squeaky clean, right? Sometimes you don't look that way, but when you check everything else, that's the way it is, right? On all the roughness, is nothing, no illegal things been done, nothing. But of course, I keep saying that the auditor's job is to make us look as bad as possible. All people need to do. I had to give up revenue after the hurricane to help Cayman General Insurance Company, or it was going to affect the bank. But in helping them with $20 million, it's, you know how many Caymanians that helped? Well, how many hundreds of cars and vehicles were saved? How many houses were saved by that? If I hadn't done what I did to take the licks for that, and who gave me the licks? The then opposition, who is now the government today. They were the ones giving me the licks. And who else? The Auditor General. I got his report. And anytime I want to understand that what their job is to stop Caymanians from getting anything, they believe that they should be the one that getting it and not Caymanians. Or anybody else in the Caribbean, if you may. They believe that is them. And I'm sorry that, Julian, unfortunately, what people are seeing as more and more as an elitist attitude has nothing to do with the home, those sort of things. A lot what you said could be true or would be true in the sense that you're talking about parenting. But when it comes to this Auditor General and people needing, it is different. It is seen as an elitist attitude. Some must have and others must not have. That's why that child could not get any to do his what? To finish his summer education, finish his education in the summer so that he could graduate earlier. What better than that you want? No, they didn't give it to him. All right? But what is seen as an elitist attitude, I'm sorry, but that's what it is. That has nothing to do with raising children. All of us, that I believe that most parents try to do a good job of that. Some people fail for various reasons, the environment that they live in, the culture that they have to live in. But this has nothing to do with that, Ms. Banks. Has nothing to do with that. We're talking about what the Auditor General is doing that is wrong. Saying one thing when he could have gotten the accounts are all there. If you want to talk about paper, it's all there.
He just didn't look at it.
He didn't look at it because that's not what he wants. The impression he wants to leave is what he gave and what the Compass would report, and you will not see the Compass retracted because, and I gave them the same books. I'm waiting to see what the story going to be. I gave them all the accounts. I gave them all the reports. I gave them the children testimonials. All these that I have now for 2013 and 14 is there. The report is there too. So they got all of those. So let's see what if the Compass will even say anything about the misdeeds of the Auditor General. You can't. What they're doing is what Mr. Benson used to talk about: putting credit in one pocket and taking it out of the next. No, that can't work. That can't work. Now, so they say or see that they have a right to investigate. Well, they can go ahead. They have a right to investigate. Do they have a right to prosecute? Do they? It is not right to violate the Constitution, OC. Is it right? Is it the rule of law? Is it what? That violates your right and mine. That violates the rule of law to get you, to get me, then brag of it in a court of justice? Is that right? Has it come to pass in this country that because you don't like a person,
and you want to beat him down, and you want to get him, so-called officers of the law can trample on human rights and constitutional rights and red-handedly violate every principle of justice and then try to excuse it in a court of justice. Is that right? Let the police investigate what they should be investigating and not investigating. That's their own work. That's why I have to sue the government now.
Gentlemen, we're way over time, but certainly interesting, and I hope that we have done justice to this topic by pointing out to our listening audience, giving them a clearer picture of it, trying again to present a balanced view, and we encourage those of you who are familiar with the Nation Building Fund to go and read the Auditor General's report, because there is no persons who are more qualified to critique that report than those persons who know about the Nation Building Fund. If you don't know about it, then it's very difficult to critique it, because you're only going based on what is published there. Correct. You're not seeing the full picture. Correct. Folks, I want to remind you that you've been listening to For the Record. I've been your host, Orrit Connor, and my guest in the studio with me this morning, we had the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, as well as Mr. Jonathan Piercy. I want to thank our sponsor, Digicel, and For the Record was sponsored by Digicel Top Up, where you can send minutes to your loved ones in Jamaica from a Digicel retail location or a top-up kiosk. And they will receive double credits plus 7 free days of data when you send $20 or more. I want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who is less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. And if you talk to Mr. Bush and others, we will say that the Nation Building Fund was designed partially for that purpose as well, to help those in need. And for those of you who can't, don't want to donate directly to someone, I urge you to donate to a worthy charity. We always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want. I ask you to continue listening to Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, 12 noon, for Talk Today. I will be back on Monday morning. Government will be on, not certain exactly who will be on at this point in time, but we will be in contact with them as well. I say to you, have a great weekend, stay safe, and God bless.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.